England had their foot on the jugular after an hour's play on Friday, but they could not keep it there for long. When England were 368 for 4 with 2 Centurions at the crease, the Australians were in a bit of bother. Then Peter Hanscom, who is not playing in this game, made his bid for the Man of the Match award. A slice drive from David Malin against Nathan Lyon off break went up in the air, and Hanscom, briefly on the field for David Warner, sprinted to his left, dived and grabbed the ball inches above the ground. The dismissal of Malin triggered the subsidence, the first of 6 wickets England lost for a paltry 35 runs. That much faded lower order, which has extricated the side from some deep holes in the past, does not function so well in Australia. There were more echoes of the Ashes tour 4 years ago as the tail was swept away by the hostility and aggression of the Australian pacemen. It is not so surprising since these are fine bowlers and the pitch here has some life, but they don't like it up in the lower order. Ashes 2017-18. Australia v England 3rd Test. Day 2 live. Read more. Despite excellent hundreds from Malin and Johnny Bairstow, who added 237 together, England's highest partnership at the WACA, Australia were right back in the game, having bowled England out for 403. Most definitely not an impregnable position. In a recent match here in November of 4 days duration, Western Australia declared on 514 for 7 against South Australia and lost. Moreover, Steve Smith, later in the day, came out and did his Don Bradman impersonations, clipping the ball into the gaps on either side of the wicket in his idiosyncratic way with barely a false stroke. At the close, the imperious Smith was unbeaten on 92 and Australia were 203 for 3. It had started so encouragingly for England as Malin and Bairstow blunted the second new ball. Australia began with 4 maidens and an unsuccessful review against Malin that hinted at some desperation. Then the England pair were into their stride, with Bairstow crunching 2 sweet drives to the offside boundary in an over from Pat Cummins. Bairstow sped through the 90s and a hook shot off Mitchell Marsh took him to 3 figures for the 4th time in Test cricket. He celebrated in the approved manner, bat aloft, helmet removed, and then, departing from the norm, he delivered a playful, good-natured headbutt to his helmet. The Australians were in some disarray, but it took only 1 wicket, that of Malin, for them to raise their game and swarm all over the England team. 2 balls after Malin's exit for what may be a career-changing 140, Moeen Ali was caught at second slip from a regulation short delivery. He looked surprised by the bounce achieved by Cummins, even though he had been watching the partnership for many hours. Now the Australians were on the stampede. After 2 crisp boundaries, Chris Wokes was caught at long leg flicking at another short ball. Any hope of a recovery evaporated when Mitchell Starc removed Bairstow's middle stump with a full-length delivery that the batsman was seeking to clip to the leg side boundary. Thereafter, Craig Overton and Stuart Broad were both dismissed fending at short deliveries, though not before Broad had walloped a mighty wind-assisted 6 off Hazelwood when the ball travelled 104 metres in the direction of the old scoreboard. Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest. Johnny Bairstow's middle stump is uprooted by Mitchell Starc, ending a fine innings of 119. Photograph. Dean Lawins, EPA. The England total seemed to shrink after a dozen overs in which the ball seldom evaded the middle of the bats of the Australian openers. Then Joe Root turned to Craig Overton and something happened. Overton, extracting more life than his peers, found the outside edge of David Warner's bat. 2 balls later, he almost dismissed Usman Khawaja for a duck. A leading edge came back down the pitch. Overton dived to his left, but the ball slipped from his grasp. Then, after a successful review by England, Cameron Bancroft was sent on his way. LBW to the lanky Devonian. Overton would now be given a long 8-over spell before tea since he had been the solitary threatening bowler. Here was more long-term good news about England's bowling ammunition, though this was tempered when Overton left the field after bowling 2 overs in his second spell. He did, however, return later, albeit with a painful ribcage, so Khawaja kept Smith company even if he was overshadowed by him. On 28, the left-hander edged a delivery from Woke's route at second slip, but the England captain never spotted the ball. For his information, it whistled past his left ear, much to Woke's exasperation. So this pair added 124 together, whereupon Khawaja was LBW to Wokes, who had bowled with more vim than his senior colleagues. ICC to investigate Ashes spot-fixing plot claims but say no evidence of corruption. Read more. Although while Smith was superb, delicately finding the gaps like a snooker player controlling the cue ball, it did not matter who was bowling. England set some funky fields for him, whether they were the creations of Bond, that's Shane Bond, who has now left the party, or even a mysterious it is hard to tell. But they did not work. Sometimes they seemed to make life easier for Smith since there were so many gaps for him. Without ever appearing to hurry, Smith cruised along with a strike rate in the 80s. Sean Marsh had an escape on 7 when a rebound off the boot of Mark Stoneman at short leg bobbled in the air, whereupon the fielder and keeper became confused and failed to snatch the rebound. Moen could have done with a fluky wicket. Meanwhile, Smith had issued an unnecessary reminder that he is the best batsman in this series by a considerable margin.